In 1945, World War II ended. But the peace that followed wouldn't last long. A new and dangerous standoff began, without the typical signs of war. The United States and the Soviet Union, once allies, now faced off as bitter rivals. The world was split in two, divided by more than just borders. On one side stood the United States, with its vision of democracy, free markets, and individual rights. On the other, the Soviet Union, where one-party rule, state control, and communism were the foundation. Both believed their way was the future. Both were determined to shape the world in their image. But rather than direct conflict, the Cold War unfolded through proxy wars, political maneuvering, and espionage. Countries from Korea to Cuba became battlegrounds, not for soldiers, but for ideas. The US and Soviets fought behind the scenes, funding revolutions, backing rival governments, and supporting opposing military forces. The real war was fought in shadows. Intelligence agencies on both sides gathered secrets. The world watched nervously as each superpower tried to outsmart the other. Tensions escalated in moments of crisis, like the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, where the US and the USSR came closer to nuclear war than ever before. It only took one small mistake to bring the world to the edge of total destruction. Thankfully, that mistake never came. But the fear lingered. The arms race was a key part of the Cold War. Both superpowers stockpiled nuclear weapons, more than enough to wipe out the world. The idea of mutually assured destruction became a twisted kind of insurance policy. Neither side wanted to risk the other launching the first strike, knowing it would be the end for both. But the buildup continued, each side trying to outdo the other. Yet the Cold War wasn't all about weapons and threats. It was also a battle for hearts and minds. Propaganda painted each side as the enemy, creating deep distrust. While one side competed for military dominance, the other sought to win in science, technology, and culture. The US landed a man on the moon in 1969, proving its space program was superior. The Soviets had their own breakthroughs, like launching the first satellite Sputnik in 1957, which sent shockwaves through the American public. The race for space became a symbol of global power, but it wasn't just about rockets, it was about ideas. By the 1970s, there were moments of détente, attempts to ease tensions. The US and the USSR signed treaties like SALT to limit nuclear weapons. But these efforts were fragile, and the Cold War never truly thawed. In places like Vietnam and Afghanistan, the superpowers continued to back opposite sides in bloody conflicts, leading to widespread suffering. The 1980s brought new challenges. The Soviet economy was in trouble. People were tired of the system, and reform seemed inevitable. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. These reforms allowed more freedom of speech, but they also revealed the deep flaws of the Soviet system. Meanwhile, in the West, President Ronald Reagan took a hard line against the Soviet Union, calling it the evil empire. But as the 1980s went on, the pressure grew on the USSR. Eastern Europe began to revolt. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, the symbol of the Cold War division, was torn down. People on both sides of the wall celebrated the end of an era. Finally, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The Cold War officially ended, not with a final battle, but with the disintegration of one of the two superpowers. The US emerged as the world's sole superpower, but the Cold War's legacy was far from over. The Cold War changed the world in ways that still affect us today. It reshaped national borders, altered political systems, and left a lingering mistrust between East and West. And though the Cold War is over, its echoes still shape modern politics, alliances, and global security.